teeny little blue volume that many old floating around in the house, but hardly ever open. Anyway, so they referred to these pages on the self-examination. And so I printed it out for everybody. Last time I printed it the same size as the book, and I printed it back, and back so these are all pages. That's what that's all about. Interactions with lots of questions from you. The meditation last
I love the cacti. Pretty good. Ready to get out of the. Ready to get out of the. 40 and 40.
Don't know if we will. I mean, sometimes follow this doesn't publish process. And you know, we really
That's why he's up there.
Because I graduated from college,
Okay.
and didn't go back.
When we first moved here, 6 or 8 months, somebody said, "How have you been to Boulder yet? It's just like Boulder." I know,
I went to Arizona, we lived in Scottsdale, 2 stop lines, shop in Scottsdale. If you're supposed to have the horses.
And back there, in Phoenix, Scottsdale, I did the same.
All right.
Granddaughter lived in Mesa. Almost been over there in the state. They go out in the desert, they eat stuff like that. But by stuff, I don't think it's a good idea.
We used to go to these far over there.
Yes.
All right. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into this opening meditation. And again, I haven't figured out the inbound. So. So, your questions that they pose, take a look and see if you want to dive in more, or if you just got something else you want. They're also in your handout, so that's you. Are thinking about that. If there's something else that you want to, if you want to do that.
Well, I had a major disagreement with the church. We just went on for a while, and finally, I said, you know, we need me, so I just forgave that person, talked to him, and said, look, you think you're right, I think I'm right, let's just let this go, let's move on. And that person could never move on. But I had to do that so that I could at least feel good about myself. I had to take the step to try to.
I think sometimes forgiveness just takes the form of accepting the fact that someone is who they are, and then you're not even going to change. There's nothing that you can do to change it. All you can do is accept them as they are, as flawed as we are. As Nan said, though, I think I have a relative. He doesn't get it. You know what I mean? If you say, I forgive you, speak for what? You know, some people don't think that they, you know, as many things as he's done to our family, you know, understand that he ever did anything. That's kind of hard. Like I said in one class, you have to love them from the distance.
I think that's one of the things we struggle with our daughter, is that no matter what she does, it's never her fault.
I've got one like that.
It's just,
And you have to love yourself as well.
yeah.
And forgive yourself as well. And sometimes from a distance, only.
I think recognizing just generally that the other person, whoever it is always carrying stuff that we don't know. Whether that's with forgiveness or anything else. We just know what people you meet every day on the street have just experienced or experienced in their. And so I try, you know, I think if we can realize that, at least it frees us up a little bit. If they didn't wake up this morning saying, I mean, how can I hurt Chris today?
Yeah, right.
They may have done. More than likely, they were just driven by their own personalities, their realities of their lives, but they get hurt. But everybody, all of us are carrying things going in through hands.
Yeah, I've said this a number of places, the best we have to it has to do with what we were just saying. You know, we talk about Orthodox in terms of right-wing Christians and then heretics. You know, nobody gets up in the morning and says, I vow to be wrong. You know, it's what I think about it. Carrying our own stuff that is a weight that might prevent us from moving forward as quickly as we might want.
It was really funny, as I was growing up, my dad had a big degree of anger, but it was an interesting anger. It was only shared on myself and my mom. And everybody outside of the house thought, your dad's just a nice person. And the funniest thing happened is one day, I brought Deb home, and I left my keys in the door.
No, I left the keys
In the door.
in the car
So
door.
my dad walks in and he just starts wailing at me, and he doesn't realize that that's there. And as soon as Deb walked out, it was like silent. He went into his room, shut the door, and wouldn't come out. And I think it was because his great secret had suddenly exposed.
Did he change thereafter?
I mean, he wasn't angry all the time, but I mean, he would only take his anger out on me and my mom. And might be the greatest thing in the world.
I don't think,
You know,
he served in World War II, he grew up really poor. There's a lot of things that, you know, I had to forgive him for everything he did to my mom and I. And, you know, I had to forgive him because it was the only way I could, you know, live comfortably. And, it was crazy.
Yeah, I inherited my dad's way of being angry, which is kind of flaring up, immediately sort of lashing out. Some people have been schooled or whatever to kind of hold it in or stuff it, and it was, there's a downside to that because stuffed anger often becomes depression. But the danger with the kind of flashing anger is you hurt people because you haven't thought through before you say whatever you say or do whatever you do.
Yeah, that's probably.
I don't think anger itself is wrong. I think how we handle it, how we do it. Anger is a response to frustration. If you get frustrated, you probably can have some anger. So, you know, can you deal with it constructively and let it go? Identify where it comes from, or are you going to stuff it and get depressed, or are you going to hurt somebody else while that's out too quick?
There's a guy, I think he's still working, professor down at one of the schools in Texas, the University of Texas campus, or one of the private ones, they were, last name is Pennebaker. And he wrote a book a long time ago called Opening Up. And it had to do with the physiological benefits of confessing. And he was working with, he did some stuff with college students, having them write things down and things like that. He was also working like at prisons and in jails and doing galvanic skin response and all of these things to show the physiological effect of telling the truth and getting it out. And I think the same thing is probably true about forgiving it. You know, just that holding it in, how much energy it takes.
Right.
It's a secret.
Right.
And being angry at somebody not being able to do this. Shall we move on to cacti?
I am an introvert. In fact, when you did that test.
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, I'm a total 100% high.
You and me.
And me. But, you know, life experiences I've learned, if I want to have a life, you have to walk out of the door. And sometimes it's really, I've been known to walk around my house and throw myself off the door. But I've done it. And I have wonderful friends. But you have to.
I don't know, your experience, I've seen statistics say that many, if not most clergy are introverts.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we just have a funny role. We have to figure out how to get what it is that we need that introversion sort of defines. My interview at DU, I had an all-day dog information. Talking to people or doing presentations, group interviews, or all of those kinds of things. At the end of the day, I went into the office where the two people who were going to hire me, and they said, we have a question for you. What's your Myers-Briggs? And I said, you want to know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert, don't you? I'm an introvert, but I know which bar I've done it to at the airport. Used that example before, but it was, where I can go. I don't want to go to a place where everybody knows my name. I want to go away from a place where everybody knows my name.
Well, and we get our energy from our quiet time.
That's right.
Whereas extroverts get their energy from busy time. So I think that made a lot of difference to how I was able to function.
Well, I think introverts in general, as they learn to function, learn to separate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the extroverted side, the side that goes out and faces the world. There's another part that most of that world never sees.
Yeah. I've been ordained about 10 years, I think, before I did the whole Myers-Briggs thing and sort of figured out why it was. You're right, a lot of clergy are introverts because we're likely to be introspective and live in our heads and maybe in our hearts, but certainly in our heads. And yet you're thrown into an extroverted profession which rewards your interaction with people. And so what that does, it costs a lot of emotion and energy. So lots of clergy, Sunday afternoon, will just go home and crash. And it's not because you're physically worn out, it's because all that emotional energy that you expended interacting with people that you love, but it still costs. I think extroverts are probably just the other way around.
Well, I introverts did briefly during COVID with online learning. And my eldest granddaughter is this way. And she definitely has outside and inside. When she went back, we had to go back to school, class on a regular basis. She would come home from school and sleep for an hour and a half, 2 hours every day.
Right.
She was absolutely exhausted and face again. She had had that barrier overcome and had become used to it. And she was able to rebuild it, but she was on her own. And then she just totally almost destroyed her for a while.
To your point about kind of forcing yourself, I think is important. You're never going to be well-rounded if you don't. The extrovert needs to find some way to be quiet, I think, and find some solo time. And the introvert certainly needs to get outside and walk around the house, interact with other people, or else the worst impulses of whatever that orientation is will catch up with you.
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt I'm an extrovert. But I found this interesting because we talk about the cacti and so forth, and having lived in Arizona, I've seen acres of land that was they just wiped out all the cacti. And nobody even thought about it because they wanted to put in a shopping center or restaurants or something. And I almost equated to what happened to the American Indians because, they got put on reservations. And the one thing that really surprised me at the General Convention, there is a groundswell to talk about what happened with the American Indian and bring it up in front of the Episcopal Church and talk about it. I don't know if it'll ever lead to enumeration or anything, but I mean, I was surprised how much that was talked about.
Well, some churches have a custom of beginning a service with recognizing the land that we're on, and who it belonged to originally. I think that can be overdone maybe, but I think it's certainly worth remembering that we weren't here first.
Yeah.
And they didn't possess the land. They lived with it.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And that to me is one of the problems that I have with a lot of the land acknowledgements. Took it, look, they didn't think they were there, you know,
No.
they were just there. So, so I don't think it's as much as a land acknowledgement as people. That goes a lot of it. Other comments on cacti?
I want to stay away from the jumping one.
Right. Zero escaping could go so far. All right. Well, as president of the service for this wheelchair, I read for one. And I'm just so glad that we have daily office mission. Because it means that we read everything. It's not just the stuff that makes us feel good. We have to deal with those hard bits as well as everything else. I see it, and I told my spiritual directors this, my being in the text is my being in the conversation. Other people do it through meditation or other kinds of things. For me, just talking about sitting in our heads, something in my head, that's the easiest way for God to get through all of this stuff.
I've been trying to do more contemplative prayer, just prayer of silence during Lent, because I'm like you. I love daily offices, and I think part of going to seminary was to be there twice a day, every day for 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're required to be there. And so it just becomes part of your natural thing. You know? So it's like brushing my teeth. I do morning prayer in the morning and evening prayer late afternoon or evening. And that has been sort of the golden thread, I guess, through all the highs and lows that I've had in my spiritual life. Sometimes like nothing, and sometimes it's like God speaking right off the page, because I've had that kind of commitment over the years to that discipline, whether I feel like it or not, sort of always there. I think it needs to be balanced by some of this stuff, because you can just live in your head, and I'd rather get that into my heart a little bit more, so I'm trying to sit for 20 minutes in silence a couple of times a day and do a little different kind of praying, but I still use the office because I can't get away from it.
I think one of the more interesting things we did in this church is we went through the program of reading the Bible.
Yeah, 90 days.
90 days.
Whoa, I thought about a year.
90 days. And
Maybe 120 people.
a lot of people did it. And I think it was real education.
There's one pattern that has, in a year, you read 3 chapters of the Old Testament and 1 chapter of the New Testament each day. I think 1 psalm. If you do that, I did it 1 year, and you can actually do it almost exactly in a year. In 90 days.
Yeah.
Well, we came together like on Monday, met in small groups and discussed what we had done the previous week.
Yeah.
And then that probably kept a lot of us going, because you had responsibility.
Sure. Cool. I think it's really good that you point out that it's not like a how to do it book or a self-help book where you go, I've got this problem, so I look up page, whatever, and I get the answer. I'm afraid a lot of people try to use it like that. Not so much about the failures, I think, but
In hotel rooms, you know, you hope to give you a title. If you're having an issue with this, see here.
right.
and all those kind of shit.
Right.
Maybe they don't do that anymore, but that's what they do.
Oh, me too.
I think at different times I like to read day by day for a while because it keeps me reading and thinking about that. It's pretty easy way, at least spend a short amount of time to get the edge.
And if you didn't know what was happening, get out, as you walk in the door right on your right, once you go through the, this crosswalk wall, never look at it.
There's a fairly young priest named Scott Gunn who's now in charge of Day by Day. He has really advanced that whole ministry, a lot of online stuff.
Yeah.
Daily offer online, but he's younger, and so he's thinking those terms for screens. But he's a sharp guy. I think there's now some kind of an even new partnership with the National Church forward Day by Day to do more about helping us be more biblically literate. Some big guys, about 6'5". Scott Gunn is huge.
Oh,
I was reflecting a little bit on that when he was reading prayer, he talked about this morning, but I don't think there are any people even recognize the name when we said George McDonald, who happens to be Caitlin Richards' father, and he was in the men's group, and he was doing a 6 and 6, 6 in Florida, 6 here. And when he was here, he came to the men's group. He was a doctor by background, and he had cancer, I believe, and I think that's what finally got him. But I guess being a doctor and having cancer, you probably know what happened. Sort of. Yeah. And he was really a nice guy.
yeah, he was. All right, well, that's it, last.
I always find that number one interesting up there, because one of my mentors is a guy named Dennis Green, who happens to be out of Kansas City, and he actually, the last 20 years at a church, financially first rated vital resources for churches. And probably 80% of his work is with Catholic churches. He always starts out his presentation by saying, you know, the Protestants give 2.2% on the average, and the Catholics give 1.1%. So let's get going. It's just, there's a whole lot more Catholics.
Right.
I was surprised, maybe, too, that, the deal with on generosity, the questions were all entitled.
Clergy. Clergy wrote the question.
Yeah. And I just, what about all the other places where one is generous? Time or talent or, and I don't mean time, talent, and treasure, just being with somebody. And all of those kinds of things that, so I was a little bit confused.
You're right, every one of those things.
Right.
Yeah, about money.
We've tithed forever, and we don't get involved in churches today. We used to. Now we give something directly to the board and some things. But anyway, I was a young priest and had a young accountant who, Jackson, he looked at it one year and he said, "Chris, you can't afford to give this much to the church. You're in the shadows of poverty." But I do think there's some issue. I mean, I have to say, you make $10,000 a year and you tithe and you live on $9,000. You make $100,000 a year and you tithe, you have to struggle along under $90,000.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's quite as fair as the.
The other thing that's become really common is a lot of very wealthy people in the United States have considered giving away 1/2 of their wealth.
Yeah.
When they, usually it started out to be when you die. I know a lot of them are trying to give it away. It's a lot harder. For me, it's easier to give it away when I die than to give it away while I'm still alive.
Sure.
You don't need it anymore. Don't think about money, but it's comments about generosity.
I think it's more than just money. A lot of your actions, not just what you give cash to someone, but that's how you handle, how you educate time, your kindness.
One of the things he mentioned in there was feeding the 5,000. And, as people have continued to listen to that over the years, I've heard now several people say, well, there was lots of food there. It's just that the women kept it in. And when Jesus blessed the fish, and then suddenly the families were more willing to share. So,
That's a miracle in and of itself.
Yes, it is.
We should complain. Yeah.
Getting away from the actual money, I find more joy down in my sewing room creating these things that I do made through the Salvation Army, because I know that what's going to become of that will support a child after school care. It's just a total different way of how I got great satisfaction in my son. I just could live there forever. Unfortunately, I pay the bills too, so I have to go back to the computer. But yeah.
Well, I tie, there's an organization called the Tie-A-Thon, and we tie flies, hunt flies. We give them to the Tie-A-Thon and the industry. So it costs me $25 to tie 100 flies. It takes time,
Yeah.
But those flies would normally retail for $2.50 to $3. You know, so my $25 in investment of my time translates into a donation of $300.
Yeah.
You know, and the wrong way of thinking about numbers, okay, there's translating that way, like the same way that investment of time is an investment of dollars, in some places. I like doing that, it's the same kind of thing we were talking about, that's.
I do a similar thing too. I still belong to a co group in the Catholic church that I used to belong to, a charity club, and we read those. And I love doing that. And like a little bit different organization. Yeah.
That's both time, talent, and treasure in a way.
Yeah, and
Offering time, you use your own talent, and it turns into treasure.
I think it's huge, right? I mean, my opinion is, it's all the above, it kind of gets you to the 100% that we're talking about. You know, it's part of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And especially if you enjoy doing what you're doing and you're giving, that means how blessed are you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right? I think. And, yeah, it's so much more than money.
Think about lawyers and billable hours, you know, billable hours, you know, than there are in a day, you know, and it's the same kind of thing. How do you magnify the stuff that you already do, it becomes greater than what your initial investment, either in time or any of that, is billable hours. All right, any last words? You know that, you know, we've got an impact congregation each on the second Sundays. And
Right.
we're getting ready to sort of come in, so. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, we're not-